to call our meeting to order. This is the City Council City Meeting for February the 21st, 2023. Madam City Clerk, if you can please call the roll.
Councilmember Carter,
Present.
Councilmember Oliva,
Present.
Councilmember Garcia,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Marroquin,
Present.
Mayor Cardenas Singh.
Present. At this time, I would like us to please stand. We will be led by the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilmember Edgar Garcia, and then invocation, please, by Councilmember Sonia Carter.
Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you, Lord, and we're asking you, Lord, just to go around not only this room, but we're asking you to go around the world right now. It's a lot of accidents that have been happening, a lot of the weather that has been bad. We're asking for you just to touch people, not only in El Centro, not only in the Imperial Valley, but we're asking for you just to go above and beyond, Lord, just to touch everybody. Touch us with decision making here in El Centro, Lord, in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Very nice. Thank you, colleagues, Councilmember Edgar Garcia and Councilmember Sonia Carter. With that, I'd like to go ahead and move us to our report. Madam City Attorney, please, if you could report out on closed session.
The City Council had a relatively brief closed session starting at 11:30 today, and there is no reportable action at this time from that closed session.
Wonderful, thank you. I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge two individuals that are here at our City Council meeting, and that is Mr. Matthew Jetzowitz. Genocides, I'm so sorry. Who is the Chief Administrative Officer with UCSD, who is assisting us here with ECRMC, and also Tammy Morita, who is our CPA that's also assisting us with ECRMC. Thank you so much for your leadership, and we thank you for being here this evening. With that, this is the portion of the agenda which is for public comments. The City Council welcomes your input. At this time, members of the public may address the City Council on any matter not listed on the posted agenda. Pursuant to the Brown Act, no action will be taken on any item brought forth under public comments. We ask that you please complete a blue speaker slip and submit it to the city clerk prior to the start of the meeting. Although you are not required to identify yourself, this information on the speaker slip assists the mayor that all persons wishing to be addressed by the City Council are recognized, and it also assists the city clerk in preparing the City Council meeting minutes. At this time, public comments are afforded 3 minutes. Madam Clerk, is there any blue speaker slips?
None, Mayor.
All right, and any indication of anyone remotely?
No, none.
All right, great. At this time, we'll go ahead and move on to the agenda item, which is scheduled presentation. At this time, I would like to please invite Ms. Esperanza Colio, Calexico City Manager.
Good evening, City Council members, City Mayor, Interim City Manager, and the Attorney, of course, and citizens of the City of El Centro. I'm sorry, it's been a while since I haven't made presentations, so I guess it's my turn, right? I requested the city the opportunity to share with you and with everybody, the citizens in general, a situation that is happening in the city of Calexico. A situation that can potentially happen to every city in Imperial County. It's more an awareness situation. As you may know, for some years, the Homeland Security has been releasing asylum seekers at the border. Before, they were also being released at the Greyhound station in the city of El Centro, but now it seems that all of them are coming to the city of Calexico. As you may know also, the city of Calexico Greyhound doesn't have as many trips as they used to have before. It's more limited now. And so some of them will come to the city of El Centro to take the bus to go to Los Angeles or San Diego so they can take a plane and reach their final destination. Most of the asylum seekers are not staying in Imperial County. However, When they come to our country, they don't understand the language. They're coming from somewhere in the 10 to 15 different countries. And so they will have the tendency to stay 2 or 3 days with no place to stay. So our goal as a city is to provide that assessment so we can help them to reach their final destination. So today's presentation is about what we have been experiencing since December 23rd. And the reason why we're emphasizing on December the 23rd is the following, and you're gonna see the photos. For me, that was something that broke my heart because it was a day before Christmas Eve. So with that, could you, do I just click? Okay, good. So the day before Christmas Eve, we were notified by Customs and Border Patrol that the city of Centro will be receiving a release of 31 asylum seekers. So when I got the email, I was like, what do they mean? We have been receiving some of them, right? But this particular one was coming from the Customs and Border Patrol, the port of entry. And this was 38 minutes before their release. And of course, the city of Calexico, we do not have social services department or any other agency that is capable of doing the work and doing assessment. So automatically, I reached out to the County of Imperial and I requested assistance, and they immediately responded. They sent a unit, social services units. For those who are familiar with social services department, they have a mobile unit, and they were able to attend those individuals. Out of those individuals, out of the 31, we had 21 adult males, 3 females, and 7 children, some of them 19 months, and some of them all the way to 11 years. And so those are the photos on the first day when the releases happened. And I don't know if you remember, at that time, there was a situation everywhere in the country in which the flights were delayed. Every single flight before Christmas Eve, we were having a lot of crashes with flights, so the shelter is full. And so CBP has a rule that when someone knocks on the door requesting asylum, they have 6 hours to process those individuals. After those 6 hours, whoever is approved, it needs to leave the premises. So they will have to release them. They cannot keep them for days. And so that's specifically what happened on that day. Those individuals completed the process and they were ready to go, but they couldn't send them to the shelter because the shelter was full. So there we have children, they haven't eaten for hours. A woman with a baby, they has to be taken care to one facility for medical assistance, and some individuals as well. So social services were able to provide assistance to those individuals. Later on, we find out that not only is the CBP was releasing individuals, but also the detention facility, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which is known as ICE. Now, I want to make a slight difference between one individual, the previous group, CBP, and ICE, the second group. CBP assesses the individuals that are knocking on the door at the port of entry asking for asylum. Those individuals, depending on the documentation that they present and everything, they get processed, and in 6 hours they're done, right? They either accept it or not accept it. That's a separate group. The Catholic Charities provide services to them. Now, the Customs Enforcement, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which is known as ICE, they receive everyone that comes into the country, jumping the fence, found illegally on the premises of the United States, so they are illegally entering the country, and those are sent to the detention center. At the detention center, they might take for them up to 5 months or 6 months to go to the judge and present their case. It's a longer process, and the population is a large population waiting for their time to be assessed. When they finalize that process and they get released, ICE will have to release them And some of those individuals were originally released at the city of Centro, while others were released at the port of entry. Lately, we have been receiving up to 3 releases a day, sometimes 1, sometimes 5, sometimes 21. We have different numbers on a daily basis. Today, we have 41. So the numbers that you're going to see today does not reflect, the number that you see today does not reflect the total number, because we have today 41 individuals more. And so that is a picture. We were having some issues about the time they were being released. Sometimes it's early in the morning, sometimes at noon, sometimes at 5, 7, 8 o'clock at night. One of the issues that we face during this time is that the shelters closes at 9 o'clock. So if they arrive at 8 o'clock, by the time that we assess them, there's no shelters anymore. So we had to reach out to nonprofit organizations in order to provide shelter. And why shelter? If they already have a sponsor, right? It's known that all of them, when they're processed, they have a sponsor. But the reality is some of the sponsors are in Florida, Atlanta, 3 hours away from us. When they call, nobody responds. What do we do with them? Do we leave them on the streets? We can't leave people on the streets. We don't want to increase the number of homeless people on the streets. So what we do, we reach out to nonprofit organizations for them to provide services, temporary shelter, either in a shelter facility or in a hotel. By January the 31st, one of the shelters is known as the Winter Shelter, which is run by a nonprofit organization, the Neighborhood House of Calexico. They closed by January the 31st. And that really puts them in a difficult position, because now every time that we have someone in which the sponsor is not responding, then we get stuck with that individual. And so what we do, we call nonprofit organizations to help us to provide a temporary shelter for 1 or 2 days. They don't stay that long. We only have one case that he stays 4 days because nobody was answering and he didn't know where to go. And so that's a critical situation for an individual coming from another country that doesn't speak the language to begin. How do we communicate? We're not trilingual or nothing like that. So what we do, we use apps. We have an app, it's Google Apps, identifies the voice of the person and tells us which language they're speaking, and we communicate through apps to provide the services. Sometimes it's a matter of just communicating with them. So this is another photo of the detention facility. And if you can see, most of them, from the detention facilities, they're all males. These are some of the photos. I, myself, and some of the city council members, even Eduardo Garcia, our assemblyman, was there one day to see what was happening. And so this is just an idea of how crowded it gets when we're trying to assess their needs. Sometimes it takes 3 hours, 4 hours, depending on the situation. And that's what is important for us, to assess them immediately so they can live in Pearl Valley. Now, the chronology of events. As I mentioned before, December 23rd was really the trigger for the situation. And most than anything is the fact that we saw children and females left with no shelter. That's really a humanistic thing to do for them to provide some sort of services. On December 29, the city of Calexico declared a state of emergency due to the number of influx of migrants seeking asylum. By Tuesday, January the 10th, the Imperial County Board of Supervisors declared a local emergency. And I didn't add in this slide presentation, as PowerPoint presentation, but the city of Raleigh and the city of Calipatria provided us with letters of support. So our declaration goes through. And by January the 12th was the last day that the County Department of Social Services was able to help us. They helped us for 21 days. And now we're really struggling because we're using resources that we don't have. We're borrowing money from other accounts to be able to provide the services, but we believe that it's not human, number one, and number two, we want to prevent additional homeless in the streets. When they get lost, they don't know where to go. We don't want that additional problem. But we also don't want to push into another city and say, now it's your problem, not my problem. We don't want to do that. We want to be good neighbors and we want to address the issue. The next item is the data. In a matter of 59 days, 8.5 weeks, as of Saturday, we have 1,293 people released. This is a combination of CBP and ICE individuals released on the streets. Now, that was before. Today we have 41, so that is 1,320 people more, or 30 people more. What kind of services do we provide? Communication assistance by using the apps. We actually made a call to Africa because there was no sponsor ever answering to one of our individuals, and one call cost us $66, by the way, but they sent the money, so he was able to leave. That's a good cause, but it costs a lot of money. We had transportation, food, shelter, monetary assistance to get the ride to Los Angeles or San Diego, if that's the final destination, and sometimes even medical assistance. Which nonprofit organizations have assisted us so far? Calexico Neighborhood House with shelter, the temporary shelter, which is no longer there. Catholic Charities, they take care of the CBP releases. If they're qualified for shelter, they need to stay overnight or 2 days. They go to the shelter. Some of them, they're already prepared and they don't need any assistance. They just leave. From Back Coalition with meals, Imperial Valley Equity and Justice Coalition, this group has helped us with hotel vouchers and transportation. The Imperial Valley Food Bank with meals. Sometimes because they stay 1 or 2 days, we had to feed them. So we feed them breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And the United Methodist Church in Calexico as well. And the Christ Community Church with, believe it or not, hand sanitizers, clothes, whatever they need, we just provide it to them. So today's presentation is only with the intention of the following. This is before the release of the lifting of Title 42. The releases that we have today are the exemptions of Title 42. And for those who don't know Title 42, when we had COVID, President Trump implemented Title 42 to prevent additional people crossing the border and continue with the pandemic, right? It was a way to prevent that. But now COVID is going to be, the emergency is going to be lifted on May 11. What does that mean? It means that also that Title 42 might end. If that happens, I'm letting you know, based on communications that I have with the city of Mexicali, there are more than 2,000 people waiting across the border for Title 42 to be lifted. And if that's the case, we're having massive people coming across the border. So our city is getting ready to prepare what is known as an assessment center. But we cannot do it without applying for funds. So we identify one, the humanitarian relief funding, which is the emergency food and shelter program. That's going to help us to alleviate some of the issues. We have to project how much we think we're going to spend. We're going to establish an assessment center with the whole intention of just assessing them, help them to leave so they can reach their final destination. Continue communication with ICE and CBP regarding the drop-off times, and this is very important because if they drop the people late at night, it's very hard for us to provide shelters. So it's better when they release it early in the morning because we have 3-4 hours and we can work with them and we can help them through nonprofit organizations. We also identify an additional nonprofit organizations that can help us, which everybody's coming on board with us, and I'm very grateful for that, for those nonprofit organizations that have been willing, without even asking them, they have come to us to help us and seek a state reimbursement for the expenses incurred during this emergency. Those are the next steps that the city of Calexico is taking. And so I'm here to answer any questions. Like I said before, this is to bring awareness to the community, understanding that you are the next city. Besides the city of Calexico, you have a Greyhound station. And potentially, if we cannot provide the assessment out of our location, most likely they're going to be dropped in your farms, in your station. I'm available for any questions you might have.
Comments, I look to you if you have any questions.
Okay, that was easy. Thank you.
At this time, I would like to acknowledge that with Esperanza Colio, welcome to the Calexico Mayor Pro Tem, Raul Ureña, and welcome City Council Member Gilberto Manzanares. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the information, Ms. Colio. Thank you. We'll move on to presentation number 2, introductions of new Community Relations Unit Officer.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of City Council. It's my pleasure tonight to come before you to discuss our Community Relations Unit. As we all know, it's an essential part of our quality of life outreach to not only our citizens, but our business community here in the city of El Centro. And as we have gone through some change in leadership, and Sergeant Thompson becomes Lieutenant Thompson, and we have promotions in the wings, we look forward to new leadership within our ranks to lead the Community Relations Unit. I'm very pleased tonight to be before you to introduce our newest Community Relations member, Officer Carlos Bernal.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, Deputy Chief Robert Sawyer. First of all, I want to thank everybody for allowing me this opportunity, not only for this position, but be able to serve our community. Just about myself, I've been in the department for a little over 3 years, so apparently I'm a newer officer. Prior to that, I was in the Marine Corps. I served my country. I did 4 years. I did tour in Afghanistan. Then I came here to this department. So there's a little background about myself. More than anything, I think we acknowledge that there is a transient homeless problems, neighbors in needs problems in the city of El Centro. And I believe that is a task, a big task that I have up hand. And I want to consider myself a boots in the ground. I think that is what my title is. I've been in this title for over a month now, since starting in January, so there's a lot to learn. I may not know a lot of things now, but I can assure you that I am learning as I go. Like I said, I am boots on the ground, so I'm out there talking to individuals. I work alongside with nonprofit organizations, just APS, for example, Catholic Charities. I understand that most of our homeless don't have a phone or elderly, right? So a lot of these social services apply to them. So I'm out there working alongside them to essentially find some kind of alternate route for these individuals to be housed. Because at the end of the day, I believe if we help them, it's going to help the city be a more welcome city for our residents and for other people that want to reside here and make businesses here. Not only that, but I do work alongside with the business owners, residents, and nonprofit organization. Again, I'm learning as I go, and I'm very grateful I was given this opportunity to serve within the police department in this position. And again, I am appreciative of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, is there any input or feedback that you'd like to provide?
Can I
Sure.
Can I
Mayor Pro
share?
Tem.
Yeah, so Officer Bernal, I've heard that you and Anna have, Anna Garcia, our code enforcement officer, have been very active with outreach in the community. And so this is that you've been collaborating with the Department of Social Services, with Paula in particular. She was the one that shared with me that the two of you have been very active in outreach to some of these individuals. So we really appreciate all of your efforts. I know it's not easy. And, but little by little, hopefully we can accomplish a goal of getting these individuals housed or maybe reunited with their families. And, but in the meantime, work with them and create those relationships, because I know that, if they gain your trust, they're more likely to be successful. So thank you for all your efforts.
Thank you, Mrs. Joaquin. I do want to acknowledge, I forgot to mention Anna. Hopefully she's listening to it. She's probably going to be mad at me because I didn't mention her. But yeah, she does help me a lot. She's been teaching me a lot of, she's very, very, very knowledgeable in this type of field that we're working on.
So
Colleagues? I'd like to take this opportunity as Mayor Pro Tem and I chair the Downtown Ad Hoc Committee. I will share with you that we always strive to be good stewards to our business owners. And I know that that relationship and that trust that takes place between the role that you and Anna have with our business owners is so important. I think about the phone calls that we get. We get phone calls of individuals that are worried, concerned, and always taking a look at how the relations unit can take place in providing some resources and some outreach services. So I thank you for the great work that's before you and for building that trust and that relationship. I still call Sergeant Thompson, Sergeant
I know.
Thompson. I want to take this opportunity to thank you. The relationship, the trust that's taken place has really started with you having your, boots on the ground and having those conversations and always being accessible. And just know that this will just be a transition or the handing of the baton to continue those services. And I wanted to take this opportunity to thank you.
I appreciate that. I wanted to say that when we started the community relation unit, we had a different chief, we had a different city manager, there was different council members and even a different mayor. However, the message is still the same, and that we want to connect the community with the city, with resources, with whatever they may need. Business owners, people who have mental health issues, people who are in crisis, anyone that has a need that the city can help. Officer Bernal will say that he's not that he's a man of few words and that he's shy, but I've seen him in action. He does a great job. He's easily approachable. He identifies with the community well. He can pick up on what they need and connect them with the right resources. So one of the things that I told him when we selected him for the position is, one, you have to be available. You have to answer your phone, and you have to make sure that, you ask people what do they need, because that's the most important question that you can ask. So again, even though there's a lot of changes, the message is still the same, and I know he'll do well. So I thank you for all the projects I got to work on with you, and I look forward to the next chapter in my career.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you so much. Congratulations, Officer Bernal. We're looking forward to the
Congratulations.
great work before us.
Thank you. Should I call you Lieutenant now?
Lieutenant?
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit, okay. All right. Moving on our agenda, this is the consent agenda portion. Consent agenda items are approved by one motion. Council members or members of the public may pull consent items to be considered separately at this time. What is the will of the body?
We don't have.
I think we're waiting to, there we go. Yes, thank you. There's just a slight delay as we're able to vote virtually here. I know on my screen, it's still, my screen still does not appear with the option to vote. No, if that's an issue, then City Clerk, we'll just do roll call vote at this point, please. Is there a motion?
Yes.
Yes.
I can't see it, I'm sorry.
There's a motion by myself, second by Maruki.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Tomas Oliva, second by Mayor Pro Tem Sylvia. Please vote. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Carter,
Yes.
Councilmember Oliva,
Yes.
Councilmember Garcia,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Marroquin,
Yes.
Mayor Cardenas Singh.
Motion passes. I am having technical difficulties. It still does not appear on my screen. All right, we'll move on to unfinished business. At this time, discussion and necessary action related to the proposal received for Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, Program Year 2023-2024. Ms. Adriana Nava.
Hello, Honorable Mayor and Council. I'll do a little brief recap of this item that was previously presented to you. At the last meeting, there were some additional questions that were asked. We also invited all of the proposers who submitted a proposal to us so they can speak on their behalf regarding their proposed activities. So as mentioned, we did receive numerous proposals. There were two from Catholic Charities. One of them was for their senior nutrition program, and the other one was from the Homeless Day Center. And then we also had some proposals from Sure Helpline, from the El Centro Police Activities League, PAL, and then one of them, which is a requirement for us, is the Fair Housing Services. So in addition to that, we had some from code enforcement in the amount of $80,000, and then we had two for housing activities in the amount of $15,000. And then one based on your prioritization were sidewalks within the CDBG target area. And we funded that in the amount of 280, 250. That was the amount that was requested. Moving forward, we also have the planning and administration of the CDBG program in the amount of 115,458. So overview of the funding available when you consider our entitlement allocation and our state program income, it's about 577,294. This is based on an estimate of previous allocations. So regarding public services, some of the proposals that we receive are strictly for public services. There is a cap of 15% for public services, and that amount is 39,344. You had previously asked what was the funding used for some of our returning applicants. And so previously, Sure Helpline had submitted for supervised visits, and the funding was used in its totality for the supervised visitations in the amount of 7,000. They submitted for a different program this time around, so I just want to be clear in that it was for a different program, and the amount funded was 7,000. And then for Pell, it's been the same throughout the years, face masks, different activities that they do. 1 year we had a gap, and we also funded them through the Friends. And so they have spent the funding accordingly. Not a heavy amount was spent on personnel, which was one of the concerns. Moving forward to code enforcement, the total amount for some of these for the current program year hasn't been expended, but they're working on that at the moment. But the rest were for memberships, legal fees, dues and subscriptions, and for temporary staff, which assists with the code enforcement process. Moving forward, for Catholic Charities for the Senior Nutrition Program, they have previously spent their funds on food, which is they identify as supplies, but it's gone to food. And then for the Catholic Charities for the Homeless Day Center, I think one of the questions was, well, how much funding has been allocated towards the Homeless Day Center? And the total amount that we have is 235,984. And that's the funding that has not been spent, that has been allocated towards Catholic Charities. We started with the CDBG CV funding. That was for the program year 2019-2020. But the funds were allocated January 18, 2022. So it hasn't been a ton of time from the date of the allocation. However, the issue that we have here is that these funds do expire, and so we don't want to lose these funds. But the total amount allocated that has not been spent is 235,984. So what we ended up doing internally is we are proposing, there's two options. You can obviously change them, but they're just two options that we have. One of them includes all the public services and funding, a portion of them, including the Senior Nutrition Program, the Homeless Day Center, Safe Haven, a portion of that funding. And then the other one, based on the previous recommendations or discussions, was perhaps not funding Catholic Charities for this cycle, since we have allocated 234,984, and redistributing those funds to the Senior Nutrition Program and Sure Helpline, Safe Haven. So I will open it up for your discussion, but this is what we have as it relates to alternatives based on our previous meeting.
Colleagues, this is the opportunity in which you can ask Ms. Nava any questions, clarification, or feedback that you would like on the two options that have been shared. Are you still processing
I
the
am. Give me
presentation?
one
We can go to the
second.
previous
Mayor Pro
slide.
Tem?
Mrs. Nava, can you go back to the previous slide that shows the, yes, the monies that have not been spent yet? Okay, does this include the funds that we allocated for the Street to Work program?
No.
No, this is aside from and this is from previous funds, previous funding of.
The Streets to
grant?
Work program would be PLHA, Permanent Local Housing Allocation Funds, which
Mm-hmm.
come from the state. This is all strictly CDBG program, Community Development Block Grant, which is federal funding that we received on an annual basis.
Okay, and this this funding has to be expended by when?
For 19, the 20 fiscal year, it's July of this year,
July of this
2023.
year.
Did you happen to communicate with Catholic Charities?
Yes, we
all
have
here.
communicated extensively. They have had some issues with their construction project, which is the homeless day center. We have since heard that they have opened the facility. I believe Vino was informed of this meeting as well. I'm not sure if he's available
He's
via
there.
Zoom. Where's Vino? Oh, Vino. Well, do you want to come and speak for yourself? I'd rather you speak for yourself than.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. I'm addressing the issue of the 220 that was awarded. And I believe I've been in conversation with the city staff on the allocation and the delay of getting the day center open. For almost a year and few months, one part was delayed. That was a switch that IID needed to enable power connection. We got it in October of last year. And then we went into the final stages of finishing up because we needed to do that. And I'm happy to let you all know that February 15th, the day center had a soft opening, meaning that it's a new building, we want to do that, so we did the soft opening. And to date, we have seen 24 unduplicated individuals, unique individuals who come into the day center. It started out, I'm glad to see over here, Officer Bernal over here. He was the first to come in. He brought in the first, he and if Anna is on the phone, on Zoom, they both brought in the very first participant or the person, the unhoused, the homeless, into the day center. And today, I believe there were about 17 who came in. 2 of them are repeat. But most importantly, before the city council, what you're looking for is, will we spend the money? So what we have to look at is internally to 220, what is the run? Running a day center takes a lot of money, and it takes a lot of resources also, both public and private. And we looked at it ramping up between now, February to June. And we have all of the money from this 220 spent way before June, because we're also getting some support from this county on that, so we are able to supplement that. But all of the 220 will be spent because only a very limited amount of that money is towards salaries for staffing at the day center. Most of it is going towards supplies, the food supplies, and for clients. Like, for example, we're getting them undergarments and others so that when they come in, when they do the laundry there and do the shower, many of them have needs. So your 220 that comes from the CV, that is the COVID money that came through, will be spent before the June 30th deadline. So any questions for me on that? I would just want to let you know that this particular CDBG grant you're looking at starts, I think so, the next fiscal year, right? July 1st. So the 220 will be spent, so whatever you allocate to us will be in the new fiscal year that will be put to 100% of use at the day center.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, colleagues?
My only question is the same that I had last time that we met, and that is any updates in relations to the day center grand opening or full opening?
Yes, thank you, Council Member. We are looking at mid to late April because this is a brand new building. We want to make sure that the building is operational with the commercial kitchen, with all the operational, we are trying to do that. And also to make sure that the word gets out. So when we have a grand opening in mid-April, we want to make sure there's just not a few people coming in. So just in this less than a week that they have been open, we had 24 unduplicated individuals that come in. So hopefully by April, when we have a grand launch, a grand opening, you all be proud that maybe there are 80, 90 people. I believe in the last point in time count, there were about 90 people or so in the city of El Centro. Maybe all of them will be there. I'm just dreaming over here, but let's dream. But hopefully we'll get them all in. So by April, we'll have a fully functional and operational. towards which what we are doing is we're not only just sitting at our day center waiting for people to come in. I think I have some flyers. If you don't mind, can I get those? What we're doing is, do I go to the city clerk?
Clerk, yeah.
We are putting these flyers out into the community, making sure that they are aware of our processes as well as what is needed, what is being provided over there, and they can come in. So this is happening. So the word is getting out. The very first one, first day, only one person came in. Now we have 18. So hopefully by mid-April, we'll have much more than just 18 coming in on a daily basis. By the way, it's open from 8:30 to 4:30. We start with breakfast, then lunch, and then early dinner. And we also give a brown bag dinner so they can take it along with them. Does it answer your question, Council Member?
That does answer my question. Yes, thank you so much.
So, Mr. Vino, I just for clarification, although the grand opening will not be until mid to late April, services have commenced. Those services are already being provided to individuals seeking the services. And I just wanted to say that so that it goes on record
Yes.
that those services are taking place.
Yes, it started on February 15th, last Wednesday. Was the first day we went live.
Yes.
So people are welcome. Our homeless outreach team in the city of El Centro has been, even today, I suppose the officers stopped by to check us, what's going on. So we have received, so today we received 18 individuals. So hopefully every day the number will keep increasing.
Right, wonderful. Any other questions for Catholic Charities, colleagues? None.
No, I just wanted to say that I'm very happy that the day center is open. I know that we've been anticipating the opening of the facility for a couple of years now, so the day has finally come. So congratulations, because it is a facility that is greatly needed here, and not just in El Centro, but in Imperial Valley, because hopefully the word will spread.
Thank you, Council Member, and we'll ensure that we work with your calendars so that the grand opening, you're all there to showcase what is being done here in the Valley, which, by the way, Catholic Charities is creating a model out of here so that people across the hill in San Diego can look at a better model than what they have over there and do it the way that you're all doing it over here.
Wow, sounds
So
great.
thank you.
And Mr. Vino, I would like to echo the same sentiments that have been shared. We've been looking forward to the opening of this building. I know that individuals who are challenged by homelessness will be treated with respect. A safe place to come in, that they are welcomed, they have the opportunity to eat a meal, shelter over their head, opportunity to wash their clothes and be treated with dignity. So I thank you for taking a look at all the aspects, the holistic approach when working with individuals, regardless of the circumstance of where they are and why they're there. What's important is that the services are being provided. So I thank you, and I'm excited to see that these services are going to take place here in the city of El Centro. And thank you for choosing the city of El Centro to open the day center.
Absolutely. And Mayor, one of the things I would add on to that is we are committed to being who we are. What does that mean? We'll ensure that the day center is a place where trauma-informed care environment is present. That also means that we do not discriminate anybody based on race, religion, gender, or sexual orientation. We will welcome everybody will be treated equally, and we'll ensure that they are given the best care and wraparound services that are available either at Catholic Charities or through our various partners in the County of Imperial.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vino.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vino. So with that said, we had the two options presented. One includes the original option that we had presented to council, and then the other one based on the lack of spending. And so with that said, I'm assuming option one based on the services, but clarification is needed.
Yes. At this point, colleagues, I would entertain a motion whether we're looking at option one or option two.
I'd like to propose a third option.
Okay.
In light of the fact that Catholic Charities Day Center has close to $236,000 of funding for the last several years that we've gone through this, including the CV grant, that they have not spent yet. I would propose that we use the 12,000 that we had previously allocated to them and allocate it to senior nutrition. They originally asked for $25,000. It's a underserved program with underfunded, it's underfunded. And they've asked for 25,000. If we allocated the 12,000 that we allocated to the day center to them, that would bring them close to whole to their original request. And I think that this program has consistently shown to spend the money on the food that they have promoted, that was the whole purpose of their ask. And they have consistently shown this city for the entirety of the time that I've been on the council and in my research before for when they've made requests, they've used it well. And there's no question that this program is vital, that it serves an underrepresented part of our community, and that it's extremely necessary. So I would propose the third option, that we allocate the 12,000 from the day center and put it towards senior nutrition.
So Mr. Garcia, if I may, Madam Mayor, I'll
Yes.
offer some comments. I share the sentiments of how important the nutrition program is. And as you were describing it and as you were explaining the third option, I thought to myself, the same way that we get these presentations and that it tells us how much we've allocated last year or the year before and the year before, you as well as I know that while we sit here, we get criticized when we start augmenting in future years. And the part that come next year, if we decide to balance out at a 12, it's going to be seen that we reduced the allocation to the senior program. And that's a concern that I have right now, that our future critics would say that we took away because we've now set the bar at 24, right? So can you help me navigate that?
Well, I think we just have to explain to the community that there was a surplus of funds that had already been allocated for a few years now to the day center, and they hadn't opened yet. And they still have that surplus of funds, the CV grant for 220, and then the other year allocations that have not been spent, as was presented in the diagram. So it's just taking the opportunity for having those funds. Those funds have to go somewhere. I'm just saying that I believe that the program that would be best served for those extra funds in this year would be for senior nutrition. And I think we can explain that by that logic and reasoning, as opposed to trying to spread it out to different programs when we have a track record of senior nutrition effectively using their funds, completing their mission that they have set forth as for what they're asking for. And the fact that they did ask for 25,000, they consistently ask for around that amount. It's just that this year we have the opportunity to do that.
Madam City Clerk, can you please put the screen on our monitors, please?
I had one question for Vino. I'm not sure if we get the agendas for the IVCCC, and one of the requested actions for a special meeting was an award of 2.1 million for the day center. And so I had that one question, Vino, if you had heard anything from the CCC on that funding, because I know it was going to be for a special meeting that was rescheduled. So have you heard? No, nothing. Okay. Yeah, that's not funding we can count on because no action has been taken.
That's right.
But that was one of the things that I did think about that would assist as well in maybe making your decision.
All right. Colleagues, what is the will of the body?
Can I ask specifically, the 12,000 that is recommended for the day center, Can you tell me, can somebody tell me exactly what that money was going to be used for?
It's not.
And
here
how
on
that
the-
is different than the 200 and something thousand that was already allocated?
You know, if you want to speak on your proposal.
And this would begin, this is for the next fiscal year, right? So it would be
Yes.
for the last half of this year plus the first half of next year?
Yes.
Okay.
Also, do want to say, reminder that Catholic Charities would be the recipient of both of these funds.
Right,
It's
right.
just the program, but Catholic Charities will still be the recipient, regardless of where you choose, so.
Mhm.
Mayor, council members, in the 25,000 that we had applied for, 5,000 for salaries and fringe benefits, 5,000 for utilities, 15,000 for supplies and equipment, that is including, the utensils, plates, pots, the serving items that we use there. And those were the spread between the 25,000. So 5,000 for salaries and fringe benefits, 5,000 for utilities, and 50,000 for supplies and equipment. And as you can see, the day center, there are gaps there in those because this is going to be a new fiscal year. The 220 would have been expended. So whatever that allocations you make towards is going to start in the new year. So we are almost zeroing out the day center budget and starting afresh. So your allocations will go towards this particular distribution. And now with the 12,000 will accordingly be spent pro rata allocations to each one of those items that we had put in our budget.
I have a question. So if you're saying that the 12,000 that we would award today are going to be used for the new fiscal year, what are you going to do with the $235,000, 984? That is the total amount that has not been spent.
So the running for the day center is close to about $500,000 a year, which includes foods and everything else. From February till June 30th, the 220 that was allocated to the day center would have been expended. And so would have been that additional CDBG money. So there are some salary amounts in there. There are most of it is for other operational needs, including food and supplies. So those all will be expended because there's a startup cost that is involved in a day center. So most of it will be progressively expended by June 30th.
So it's all gonna be used in the same fund then.
But before the fiscal year end, June 30th, because those monies have to be spent by June 30th. And this one starts in the new fiscal year, which is July 1st, I believe. So there are two questions. The 220 needs to be spent by June 30th. And if not, it has to be returned to the entity that had funded it, which is the state. And then in the case of the new fiscal year, the 12,000 that is in conversation right now for this application period will start on July 1st, which is a new fiscal year.
So that also applies to the 7680 that was approved for the 2021 to 22 year and the 8140 that was approved for the 2022 to 2023 year.
Yes,
All of that money needs to be spent by June.
June 30th.
So Mr. Garcia, I was wondering if you would entertain a friendly, and that is of everything that Mr. Vino just described. Clearly, I'm not in favor of our money going to salaries and benefits and whatnot, but he mentioned utilities. And so what I would ask is if we could allocate the day center 6,000 for the next fiscal year for the purposes of utilities only, and then the other 6 to the nutrition program, basically 18 and 6.
I would agree to that.
Yeah, okay.
Especially because with the explanation that you gave, thank you, that was very helpful, that it will take into effect during the summer months. And I think that will be
Yes.
an effective use for you to use it for utilities.
Yes.
Perfect, thank you.
All right.
So
So
if
do I,
that's the amendment, the agreed
That'll be my-
amendment, then I
that'll
will
be my
second.
motion.
Perfect, I'll second that.
all right, so we have, my screen still is not working.
Attorney?
So at this point, we will continue with roll call vote, please.
Wait 1 second. I just want the clarification. For the senior nutrition program, that will be 18,000. And then for the homeless day center, 6,000 for utilities
For
only.
Utility purposes. only.
Okay, I just want to take that for the record.
Mhm.
So I have a motion by Councilmember Edgar Garcia, second by Councilmember Tomas Oliva. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Carter?
Yes.
Councilmember Oliva,
Yes.
Councilmember Garcia,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Marroquin,
Yes.
Mayor Cardenas Singh.
Yes. Motion passes. Great. Moving on to new business. Discussion and necessary action regarding the award of bid and authorizing the execution of a contract for the Debbie Pittman Field Lighting Project.
Hello, Honorable Mayor. This is regarding the award of bid for the Debbie Pittman Field Lighting Project. Just a little bit of context. You may recall that in October, we had a pretty significant windstorm that brought down a power pole and then brought some other lines down with it due to the weight. Many of our poles date back to the 1960s, and they're pretty much at the end of their lifespan. In October 18, 2022, you allocated 1.39 million in Measure P funds for this lighting project. And so staff has been aggressively moving forward on the lighting project. Since then, on February 9th, we received 4 bids for the field lighting project. The lowest responsive bidder was Ace Electric in the amount of $888,888. And we did do a little due diligence on the contractor. They will be having, by the time we award, their business license. They also completed the field lighting project at Carlos Aguilar in 2015. They also completed the lights at the Aquatic Center in 2019. And they've also worked with local school districts, including Calipatria High School and Imperial High School, completing lighting projects as well. So they have significant experience in the installation of Musco lights. With that said, I do also want to say that we did meet with IVGSL regarding Debbie Pittman this last Friday. City manager, myself, and our park supervisor, we met with the president. And IVGSL will be using Swarthout 2 days out of the week in order to work out their situation. Moving forward, they won't be counting on that field in its totality. So we were able to reach that consensus, and overall, it was a fruitful meeting. So I just wanted to keep you posted on that. I guess that was it. So overall, it's city staff's recommendation to move forward awarding Ace Electric in the amount of $888,000, and then establishing a construction contingency fund in the amount of $120,000. Any questions?
Yes, I have a question. It's clear that we need to take some action regarding what occurred with the lighting and the dated nature of what we have at Debbie Pittman Park. What can we see coming down the road in terms of lighting requirements that we will need to upgrade for other parks and fields?
Yeah, well, the council has been very generous as it relates to lighting, and we're really appreciative of that because they're end of their useful lifespan. Right now, today, for example, because we did have a wind advisory, we canceled all practices because there is too much risk involved with some of our lighting fixtures, and we just don't feel that we should have kids out there practicing, plus their quality is awful. So moving forward, we do have a couple that you have not funded, including Fraser, Stark. The rest have generally been funded. Swarthout is in the process of completion. We have Debbie Pittman. Gomez is getting funded through a grant. We're doing lighting at Buena Vista as well, funded through a grant. And so these are the ones, we do have some pending, and it will be up to council prioritization to move forward with that. But, you know, it's at the will of the council as to how you move forward with future lighting projects.
I'd like to ask the council, my colleagues on the dais, if they felt it'd be appropriate for us to take a closer look at the lighting at Fraser Field, considering that that's essentially the home of our Little League. And it is a very high traffic field in terms of Little League. It handles a variety of ages, all the way from the little guys playing t-ball up to and including the first year of high school and such. I think that that would be something that we should look into. If we're looking into these fixes now, it'd probably be better if we took a closer look at it before we had one of these freak windstorms and some lighting got knocked down like we had to deal with at Debbie Pittman. So I don't know how my colleagues feel about that.
I actually, Madam Mayor, if I
Yes.
may, I share the same sentiment as Mr. Garcia. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Is it fair to say that the reason why we may not have acted as soon as we may have wanted to related to Fraser is because of the joint ownership in the park with El Centro Elementary? Would that have played any role in this?
Honestly, not to my knowledge, as it relates to, for us as staff, we have treated all our parks equally and try to be responsive as possible. At Fraser, I can say that we just recently installed new walkways. We've been working on the snack bar. The lighting for sure at that facility is one of our worst. And it is very difficult for staff to even troubleshoot those lights because of the age. It also is for Little League and inclusively teams from San Diego played a tournament here last year. And for me, it was just like, oh, I hope the lights work. It is an area of concern for all of us. And I know Ivan, the Little League president, has been very vocal about it. And I understand his concern. For us, honestly, they're all due. We are at the end of this lifespan. I don't know how much more we can push it. But I understand we do also have big needs in the city. And so I also want to be respectful of other departments' needs. And so, we've been doing one at a time. And, I know as a city, we're pretty large. And so I know that, Measure P, we've been trying to be strategic with it. And so I just didn't want to take it all up. We have
that's
other
fair.
needs as well.
I appreciate
So-
that and I respect that.
I just wanted to bring it up because I was personally at Fraser Field not too long ago. And I felt nostalgia at the lights. It reminded me of the same lights that I played under when I was a young man, a little boy even.
Yeah.
And that's probably not the kind of nostalgia we want to feel when we see a park.
Yeah,
So
it's true.
that's why I brought it up. And it's also, the base of our El Centro Little League. So I think
Yeah.
that might be something we want to take a look at.
And also the overhead, there's just so many overhead utility lines because that's such an older portion of the city. And it just contributes to blight. Overall, we've been trying to clean that up. For example, all new lighting will be undergrounded conduit. So you won't be seeing just a bunch of overhead lighting, which just it's not aesthetically pleasing. And in that area, there's a lot of IID portions because there's kind of weird alley. There's just a lot of interesting things in that portion of the ball field.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the previous response. The reason why I brought up the school district was because I remember before the pandemic, we had engaged with the Little League and we had asked them, what are your needs, right? And they said the grass, they wanted new backdrops, right? Lighting was number one.
Netting, we support
Netting,
as well.
that's right. And I think we've done some of those things, right? But I remember having that conversation with IID and that they mentioned that they had a program that because new lighting would have more efficient light bulbs, more efficient infrastructure, that it would use less energy and that's a benefit to them, right? And so I know that in the past they have improved lighting projects in the city of Imperial, and so I'm wondering, and I'm still waiting to see why they are not stepping up and wanting to do something here.
We did outreach to them. We have outreach to them. They haven't had any funding available is what we've been informed, but we have outreach to them. We also reached to APCD regarding the funds they had for the paving of alleys. And, we didn't get a positive response there either. So I will say that we have lobbied for that facility in terms of grant funds to try and bring in new things. Thus far, we haven't been as successful with our local partners, but that doesn't mean we'll give up. So I do say that I know that Javier and myself will continue to look for funding sources for that facility. I do feel very confident with the school district and our partnership. They have been excellent to us. I know that, that area for them, and in the discussions I've had, they cannot fund facilities that don't directly benefit their students. And that nexus there for them, has been more challenging. Because I've explained to them, well, all of these kids go to El Centro Elementary School District based on where Little League, their geographic area is. But I was explaining that there isn't that educational nexus there. So with that said, really, it is become, a city need, being that we serve El Centro residents.
And Adriana, maybe this leads for an opportunity for us to have maybe a 2-on-2 with the El Centro Elementary School District, just to share the concerns that are being shared here amongst my colleagues, just to continue that conversation. And
IID.
yes, and of course, right, the IID as well, which is one of the items that is further on in the discussion. But definitely those are community partners that we can take a look at coming together, making a collective, right, impact when it comes to providing these services in our community and to our youth. So any other comments or feedback? At this time, members, is there a motion to approve resolution number 23-10? And I'm online now, so thank
Yay.
you. All right, our mover is Mayor Pro Tem Sylvia, second by Councilmember Edgar Garcia. Please vote. Thank you. Item passes 5-0. All right, moving on to item number 9, approval of an agreement with Securitas for security services at various city facilities. Miss Adriana Nava.
So this is an item that has come before you a couple of times. Many of these items, first we go out for RFP, then we follow the process, and now we're in the award phase for some of these. You may recall that this is a screenshot from our strategic plan, that some of the needs requested by many of the people who were interviewed and surveyed were that they would like to see additional security at parks. They had an area that was just a general area of concern for many of them. Some of them have asked for surveillance. So with that, Measure P funds were allocated for parks and recreation facilities. For the Aquatic Center and Sidewinder Skate Park, we would have one guard who would be pretty much circulating the premises an hour at a time for a specific designated time. For Buckland Park, we had requested an armed guard. We have sometimes cross-country that practices there, and so that was another additional concern from some of the people who frequent Buckland Park. As part of this, our prior city manager had wanted just to consolidate all security services in one RFP for the ease of the contract and also just economies of scale. So it also includes the El Centro Transfer Terminal that is funded through a different funding source, and then also includes City Hall which during the shut-off days. So we would each individually coordinate for our respective needs, but we would have them under one umbrella. And so the cost per year, obviously the armed guard is a greater expense than an unarmed guard at $172,577. And then we have the Sidewinder and Aquatic Center, since they're adjacent to each other, that would be in the amount of $39,296. And then City Hall, again, it's only for a small period of time every month, $7,626. And the funding source for that are enterprise funds. And then the transfer terminal, which is funded through a different fund. However, for the following fiscal year, they do not have that funding available. That funding will run out. So for this year, it will be using their current fund, but for the next one, that wouldn't be available. So the total cost would be $275,364. For us, for the recreational facilities, it was funded for 1 year. So after 1 year of using these funds, we would come back to council and in collaboration with the police department and Chief Sawyer would identify, did it work, did it not work? It's sort of a pilot for us. Sometimes having security is additional demand for call for service. If there's nobody to respond, then how much is it really helping? So with that said, are there any questions?
I'd like to hear from the chief.
Yeah, for
regarding
sure.
What he believes the proposed need would be for an armed guard at Buckland Park to be there for that duration of time.
So again, good evening. The armed guard at Buckland Park stems from the calls for service in a study of the calls for service we've conducted at the specific facilities as requested by Mrs. Nava. The incidents of violence amongst the facilities that are at question at Buckland Park is much higher than the others. In the past, we've had the several unfortunate incidents with some gang activity and some assaults with deadly weapons and things like that occurring at that facility during peak hours of use, and then some in the evening hours. So that was based on the total review of calls for service and the types of calls for service at the different locations that we discussed. I would agree that the cost is pretty significant, and I think that the one-year study would give us a better understanding of what the needs are at each of the facilities. We do anticipate that with the addition of these security personnel at the facilities, our calls for service are going to increase as there's somebody to witness things occurring in a real-time nature and report back to us. We're obviously going to be summoned for assistance and to stop some of the actions and activities that are occurring, such as vandalism and things of that nature. But because of some of the specific data that we had at Buckland Park, that was the request for Parks and Rec for the armed guard of that.
To your knowledge, what would be the purpose of having an armed versus unarmed? What's the scope of their services with them being armed if they do encounter a dangerous situation? I mean, they're not law enforcement.
So they have the ability to protect their own life and intervene in certain circumstances. The scope of services is something that we'll have to work through in the contract portion of this, and that's something that Director Nava and I have discussed, sitting down with the company and going over what our expectations are and what they can and cannot do and what on our behalf. So having an armed guard there allows them to intervene in the need to protect life and preserve their own life. And that's really the extent of it. They're not there to effect arrest. They're not there to take action on behalf of the police department, but really to make sure that they have a safeguard for themselves and for our public that's there at that present time, which does, bring into play several other concerns that we have to work through in the contract for this deal.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Any other questions? Yes.
Actually, my question is more for Mrs. Nava, and that is, I see that in almost all of the facilities you have in parentheses, whether it's armed guard, unarmed guard, and El Centro Transfer Station Terminal doesn't have something. Is that guard going to be armed, unarmed?
Unarmed, I'm sorry.
Okay.
It is an unarmed guard. We previously had an armed guard there. So the armed guard, just from my perspective, for many of the people who are there, once they see an armed guard, it maybe reduces their level of engagement with others or how they interact with the facility. And so they started out as an armed guard, and then after things kind of eased off at the transfer terminal, it was an unarmed guard. So far, it's been somewhat working out. One of the greatest benefits I've seen in having the unarmed guard there is just information regarding needs at the facility, having those boots on the ground daily, where it may be restrooms or regarding patronage. It has brought information internally to us to where we can improve, and I don't know if Abraham wants to speak on this, but improve on the facility. We also, for the transfer station, receive information from ICTC because their drivers also are stationed there. So collaboratively, we work together to ensure that facility remains safe and is, really useful for the patrons who go on and use the bus, not necessarily just the people around there who are congregating because maybe they have not that much purpose in doing other things.
Any other questions?
Just a suggestion. I was looking at when they will meet maybe every year to see a discussion. Oh, yes, there it is. And just a suggestion, maybe 6 months, you might want to meet instead of the year and discuss the pros and the cons of how this is working.
Would you like us to come back to council 6 months from the award so that you can take a look at the scope of services and how that's working out, or any changes?
That would be my suggestion.
Well, won't we be presented with the scope of services before?
No, the scope of work is already outlined in the request for proposals, but we can tell you in real time how the activity from the security guards within the 6 months, how things are working out on the field. Right now, we don't have them there at all of the facilities. Right now, we only have them at City Hall and the transfer terminal. So we can give you an update if this contract is awarded.
Is this correct for a city hall to have a guard 3 days a month?
Yes, that's what we have in the scope of work, 3 days per month.
What, 3 days?
We provide a calendar to them based on the shut-off schedule.
And shut-off days can be pretty upsetting for many individuals who are looking at their utilities being turned off. So
See.
Yeah.
So they've been predetermined. Understood.
Yes, yeah, they work with NENA and they determine on the schedule what days they're needed.
And just my feedback, I know that I have received numerous phone calls from individuals who access our parks and who have children at play. Also, coaches who use the facilities, right, with their youth. And their concern is the restrooms. There has been some illegal activity or some drug use that may be happening in the restroom. And so they feel that their youth are at risk. I know that the park is used for exercise and it's, we see individuals that are accessing our parks, as early as 5 a.m. Of course, I take a look at this and it's at 6 a.m. But I think that it provides a sense of safety and it allows individuals to really benefit, right? Feeling safe and being able to have access to our park and for their families and for their children to feel safe.
The original concept was like a park ranger idea that you see in many other municipalities. While Buckland Park is in El Centro, if you look at all the Google reviews, because it's got a lot of reviews as a park, many of the users are from throughout the entire region as well. So it doesn't just get the 45,000 population. It's really a regional park in many ways too. And so I know that a lot of, just community assembles there for different events as well. We do have Alzheimer's who uses it for their different walks every year, the Children's Fair. So a lot of regional events are also held at Buckland as well. So just want to point that out.
Just to note for the council that I understand how it is modeled after like a park ranger type of thing, but more often than not, park rangers are sworn.
That is correct.
The liability for having a private armed security guard is completely different from having somebody who's sworn conducting that type of role. That was my concern with having an armed in a pilot program. We haven't put an unarmed guard there.
We
So-
did it at the transfer terminal as well without incident. So we didn't have any of those issues. And so if this contract is awarded, the next meeting is with Chief Sawyer, his staff, and then what are the roles, responsibilities, and expectations from the security company. And so we feel that we can, do that. And then if you would like, we could do the 6 months, maybe make a determination again as to whether you would like to continue that service or downscale it to an armed guard.
Yeah,
Can do that.
1 year is just too long.
Yes, I
But
agree.
If we were to check in at 6 months, Mrs. Nava, would that mean that we would shorten the length of the contract?
No, it's a one-year
it's a
contract, but
one-year
we
contract?
can modify, there is an hourly rate schedule, and so the hourly
Okay.
rate would simply be reduced. Our city attorney writes the agreements in such a way that we can downscope services if we need that. So it gives us that liberty.
Wait, I apologize. I must have missed a crucial point here. I assumed that what was requested by Member Carter was just that we would get a check-in in 6 months and that we
Yes.
would get a report. Why would we be modifying the hourly rate? And
No, we would simply be, as part of the check-in, we would revisit the idea of whether an armed or unarmed guard would be best for the facility because of the concerns.
so you're just going to
raised.
build in a possible pivoting point in 6 months?
Yes.
Okay, got
I
it.
think the legal language in the contract will include a down scope of services from what I understand. So we will elect, if the data is there, then we have the option to elect to
Got it.
downgrade the services based on the
Yes.
contract.
Got
It's
it.
just in writing.
That makes
Yes.
sense. Thank you.
Yeah, and then I don't know if Mrs. Winter is from Securitas is here. I know that she wanted to maybe say a few words. She may be on Zoom regarding her.
I am.
Oh,
I'm on the call. I really apologize though, for some reason, the volume, I can't hear very well, so I have this up to my ear.
did you want to say anything as it relates to Securitas?
I mean, yeah, we have definitely done quite a bit of temporary coverage with you. I've been listening in regards to needing to modify the services after 6 months. You know, we would do monthly check-ins with you at the least to ensure that service is going smoothly. Speaking with you to ensure that everything that, you know, the contract lines up and all the key performance indicators that we agreed upon when we start service, you know, are being met. And so if, you know, at a month, 2 months, 3 months, or 6 months in, you feel that armed isn't necessary, there's no problem whatsoever to step down to unarmed.
Any other questions for?
Thank you, Mrs. Winters. And then Abraham wanted to mention something regarding the transfer terminal as well.
Sure.
Hi, good evening, honorable council members, mayor, Mayor Pro Tem. Just a follow-up, because there was a caveat on the transfer terminal on the lack or basically the ending of available funding from Fund 204. That's a funding that we received from ICTC to manage and maintain our bus system. As you know, our bus system is a regional service. We do own the property at the city of Centro owns the property and the facility at the transfer terminal, but it's a regional service that's being provided. As such, we receive that funding. There's a set amount of funding that we received, and prior to the terminal, we had basically built up a piggy bank, which we've been able to use to pay for the security services that have been ongoing. Initially, when the terminal opened for history, we didn't have the security guards, and we encountered issues, just people hanging out too long that were not using the terminal for transportation purposes. The restrooms became an issue, and people doing activities that are not restroom related. And we decided at that point, under the recommendation of ICTC and also IB Transit, the bus provider, to add security service. Initially, they provided some funding for that, and then that funding ended from ICTC, and it got transferred to the city of Centro, who's been taking care and providing that security service based on the available funding in that fund. This year is the last year. This current fiscal year is the last fiscal year that we have that funding available. Our piggy bank runs out, so we're adjusting our budget request going forward, not showing that, and that's why the reason on that caveat and that note that's stating that we need to find an alternate funding source should we wish to continue the security services, or find alternate funding sources. So I just want to eliminate the service as an option as well. Changes in the contracts can be made during the process of contract change orders, contract amendments, and we can modify as needed. Just wanted to bring that up as information as the budget cycle moves forward. Thank you.
All right, colleagues. Any other questions for Ms. Nava? Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Right. Motion by Councilmember Sonia Carter, second by Mayor Pro Tem Sylvia. Please vote. Thank you. Item passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 10, renewal of resolution declaring a local emergency in the city of El Centro due to Imperial County storm event 10/15 of 22.
Good evening again. No presentation on this one. This is a recurring item every couple of months. We just renew that in emergency just to make sure that our funding sources at the state level remain available. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer your question.
I do have a question, Madam Mayor. My question, Abraham, is I understand that we have to do this every 60 days, right? It's a requirement. My question is, what is left in terms of either reimbursements, work done? Help me understand what the end point is. Like, up to what point would this council not need to renew this?
And I had the same question. Glad you asked it. what I want to do is end it, right? End of the emergency declaration because the work is basically done to the public's eye. The repair has been made. The only item left is going out in the road and it's a Caltrans facility, Caltrans road, and basically grinding down a couple of inches of asphalt and placing a different kind of asphalt to match the asphalt that's there that Caltrans has requested us to do. That's the only thing left is cosmetic, riding the road. Public will notice the difference. So 90% of the work has been done. This 10% is remaining. And because it takes a while to get a Caltrans permit at this point with that level, for that work is just what's dragging on the emergency declaration. You may choose to say, all right, we'll cut our losses and stop the emergency at this point and bill for what we expended and eat the other, but I feel that we can continue this motion and recoup as much as we can. We've been working very closely with the fire department and Cal OES to see what's pending, and we're just waiting on direction on when and how the reimbursement will be occurring. We've been providing the information to Cal OES, and so far it's been accepted. We're just waiting on response.
Thank
For
you.
reimbursement.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other questions? None. Members, at this time, if we could please, if I could please have a motion. Motion is by Councilmember Tomas Olivas, second by Councilmember Edgar Garcia. Please vote. Thank you. Adoption resolution number 23-12 passes. Colleagues, I also want to share with you that we are going to change the sequential order of our agenda. If I please can have your approval to do so, we would hear item number 12 first, and then we'll come back to item 11 sequentially. That's the order in which it should be presented. So at this time, we'll be listening to item 12, ending the state of emergency for COVID-19, presentation by our interim city manager, Cedric Cesena.
Good evening, Honorable Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. So before you is the request for adoption of resolution declaring the ending of a local emergency for COVID-19. First and foremost, I think I want to preface by saying that the ending of this local emergency does not negate or just make disappear the hundreds of people, El Centro people who passed away during the pandemic thus far, nor the thousands of people that were sick during this time. It is still just to remember those people and not forget about the citizens that we've lost along the way. If you recall, back in March of 2020, the governor of the state of California declared an emergency based on the threat of COVID-19 across the state and across the world. On March 5th of 2020, the city declared its own local emergency in support of operations within the city. And pretty much every event has 4 stages. The reason that declaration happened was to assist in response and recovery efforts as a result of the pandemic that was before us. The state of California is moving along the whole state into what's known as the California Smarter Plan, the next phase of the California COVID-19 response. While the local emergency is ending as a result of an October decision by the state to go ahead and end the state of emergency on February 28th of this year, there is still a plan for the continuous response and the continuous recovery for the state. And basically, it delineates a number of items that helps keep the citizens safe, whether it's access to vaccines, the availability and use of masks, for example, is still in the healthcare settings, in senior care facilities, for example, masks are still going to be required. Bringing awareness to the COVID-19 situation continues to communicate clearly on how people should protect themselves and coordinate with state and local governments. Readiness and testing, having the capacity to roll out additional reflex capacity to, if there's an increase in COVID-19 across communities, to be able to respond to those, education, and also the availability of prescription medications. What you're going to notice is that a lot of these programs are going to pivot into more of a rapid test along with rapid access to medication in order to make sure that we can get tested for COVID-19, we can get treated for COVID-19, and we can survive COVID-19. With that in mind, there's still a plan while we're ending with this resolution, the local emergency. There's still a plan for response. We're not simply dropping our hands down and saying that the pandemic is over. There's still some work that needs to be done. And every response has a preparedness portion of it. In this case, the United States have been preparing for this black swan event or once in a lifetime type of event. I think that I keep my fingers crossed that this is my one and only pandemic that I'll live through. And the response to it locally, I think as far as city staff and as well as the state government was good, good enough where we minimized the death of a lot of people in the community. So without further, my request is the adoption of the resolution. The City Council of the City of El Centro declaring an ending to the local emergency for COVID-19.
Madam Mayor,
Yeah.
if I may just make a comment, I'm completely in favor of this, and I just wanted to kind of piggyback on what the city manager said in terms of not forgetting the folks that we have lost in this city. But I also want to add that one thing that I've noticed recently is that unlike before, maybe a year or two prior, is that you'll see some folks, for whatever reason, wearing a mask as they go into the store or they're kind of going about their day. And 1, 2, maybe even 3 years ago, it was looked down upon. It was they were met with ridicule. They there was maybe some aggression met towards it. But one of the things that I have found throughout this entire thing is that we've come to realize that you don't know that person's medical situation, right? So I have found it to be very accepting nowadays. And what I'm trying to highlight is that even if and when we do pass this, for the people and the residents of the city of El Centro is to know that should you still find yourself in need of, to not feel that you're going to be seen some kind of way, that you certainly should. You certainly should if you happen to be in a vulnerable situation, you happen to have a medical condition, and you still feel like you want to wear a mask for your own protection, because again, I don't know your situation, right? And you don't know mine. Feel free to go ahead and do that. And that this is just for the overall general sense of that we are not living in where we were exactly 3 years ago, 2 years ago, but still approach this how you see fit for your own personal self. So that's all I wanted to say.
For your input. Motion was made by Mayor Martha Cardenas Singh, second by Mayor Pro Tem Sylvia. All those voted. At this time, then, the adoption resolution of 23-14 passes. Great. At this time, then, I'd like to call for item 11, discussion and necessary action regarding the termination of COVID-19 vaccination and testing policy. Ms. Bedoya.
Good evening, Mayor, Madam Mayor, and council members. Here before you, I have the request, like you said, to terminate the COVID-19 vaccination and testing policy on or about February 15, 2022, as a result of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on city staff and the public. City Council adopted a vaccination and testing policy. At the time of adoption, the council indicated that the policy would be revised or terminated when it no longer was needed because of the termination of the state and local emergency. As of February 28th, the statewide declaration of emergency will be repealed. And with the resolution that just passed right before I came up, we ended the emergency at the city. Therefore, the interim city manager recommends termination of the policy by adoption of this resolution. And I do want to add as well, for our employees, masks will continue to be provided testing for those that have a close contact at work. Free testing and during paid time, work time will be provided. So that will continue. So any questions regarding this?
Colleagues, any question, clarification on the policy? All right. What is the will of the body? Thank you. A motion made by Councilmember Sonia Carter, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Sylvia. Please vote. Thank you. The adoption of Resolution 23-13 passes. Thank you. All right. Item number 13 on our agenda, employment contract for Deputy Police Chief, Ms. Bedoya.
Yes, so following the promotion of former deputy chief on November 22nd to police chief, the city conducted a recruitment process to hire a new deputy chief. As a result of this recruitment, Kelly Brown was selected for the position. Here before you is a copy of the contract. The terms and conditions are being presented to the city council for final approval. Monthly salary increases to be effective as follows. Upon date of hire, February 27th, monthly salary will be $11,050. July 1st, 2023, $11,381.50. And July 1st of 2024, a 2% salary increase if received satisfactory annual evaluation. Employee will receive medical insurance benefits on the same basis as other employees. With that said, if you have any other questions or any questions regarding this contract?
Colleagues, any questions?
I do. So that increased schedule was for someone who held the position prior.
Yes.
And the assumption was that I guess that built-in increase in July 1st was assuming that that person had worked a full year, right?
Yes, in this case, CalPERS will increase for all sworn officers at the police department, including for this person. So that's just to help with that increase. It's due to the CalPERS increase, the employee portion. It's going from a 3%, no, from a 9% to a 12% across the board.
And that is for all employees. We'll
The
see.
police department, sworn officers.
Yes.
That's the CalPERS contribution?
Yes, the employee contribution. When we went through the round of labor negotiations, that was part of what was agreed upon. So in the police chief, the police officers and the sergeants, they all have that wording in their contract or their MOU.
So if an increase didn't happen in July 1st, the employee would have to contribute more.
More, and he would
out
lose
of-
pay.
Got it. Okay.
Yes.
I'm not trying to do that.
Right, I have a mover. Do I have a second? Second was made by Mayor Marta Cardenas Singh. Please, at this time, if you'll vote. Wonderful. Resolution number 23-15 passes 5-0. Thank
Madam
you.
Mayor,
And if I, yeah.
Sorry.
if I may,
Yeah, I was going
I
to.
know he said he didn't have a
Yes,
speech ready
he's
for
here.
tonight, but Deputy Chief Kelly Brown is in the audience tonight. If you just want to say hello, that'd be great. Sorry to put you on the spot, sir.
Quite all right. City staff and those in attendance tonight, I wanted to say thank you. I've known Chief Sawyer for quite some time, and I've had an opportunity to work for him in the past as the commander with the city of Brawley. Not to bring up the past, a little bit of animosity there. But I'm glad he made it back here. I'm glad I get the opportunity to work with him again. So a little bit about myself. This July will mark 21 years in law enforcement for me. I spent the first 17 and a half up in Brawley, the last 3.5 in the city of Chula Vista. So one thing that I intend to bring to the city of El Centro is a commitment to my people to provide the equipment and resources they need to be as efficient and productive in their job as possible. I'm also committed to Chief Sawyer to push forward his vision through the use of technology. And I think it's important that we recognize that quality of life within the city can only be improved through technology. And I commit to you to work long hours to make sure that we can find the funding sources, whether in the budgeted items or alternatively, to make sure that we can do that for the city that we all serve and those who come to the city to visit or work. So I, again, thank you for the opportunity. I'm sure I'll get to work with each and every one of you here in the future, and you'll get to see me more often. Thank you for approving my contract, and I look forward to it.
You any comments, feedback at this time?
I would just want to say welcome to El Centro.
Thank you.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Welcome.
you.
Thank you so much. We
All right.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Welcome to the city and the best department in the county.
Yeah.
Do indulge me for just a moment. Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and Council. First and foremost, leadership in any position is extremely important. And as you know, we've had some vacancies in the staff and leadership positions within the police department due to a number of reasons, the fortunate retirement for people moving on in their life and promotional opportunities and things of that nature. So it's very, very humbling to me that we're able to fill some of these positions and move forward the vision of the department and be able to serve our community. But more importantly is the quality of staff that we have. And I will tell you that I can attest that our deputy chief that's going to be sworn in on Monday is a quality find. And he was my first and only choice for the position. When I was going out looking, I would have obviously entertained a lot of other options had they came about, but we are very fortunate to have Mr. Brown join our ranks here. And you have the best yet to come. So thank you for approving the contract. Thank you for allowing him to speak. Thank you for indulging me for a few minutes, but you truly are in great hands with our new deputy chief, as with all of our men and women in rank. So thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Item 14. Mayor's appointment to the IID's 2-on-2 meetings. Colleagues, if you can please have the opportunity to allow me to share that the IID Vice President and Vice President have reached out and asked to have 2-on-2 meetings with our City Council. And at this time, I would like to ask if you could please allow myself and Councilmember Edgar Garcia to be our representatives with the 2-on-2 meetings. So I'd like to make that appointment. Thank you. Our mover is Councilmember Tomas Oliva, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem. Please vote. Thank you. Item passes 5-0. I'd like to move us on to legislative action. Madam City Attorney, do you have a report?
Yes, ma'am. I wanted to let the council know about a change that a confirmation or change you'll need to consider in the use of Zoom for meetings because of changes in the law that affect how council members and other public officials attend meetings remotely. Now that the pandemic will officially be over, you have a choice as to whether or not you wish to continue to have your meetings be interactive on Zoom, whether you want them broadcast, which I believe you probably want to continue, or whether you'll request that people show up in person. You don't have to decide now. We will continue to put them on Zoom until you make a decision to the contrary.
Colleagues, if I have your approval, I'd like to put this item on our next agenda for our next City Council meeting for us to determine how we're going to move forward with this new legislative action. Yes?
Absolutely.
Okay, wonderful. We have informational items number 15 and 16. I don't know if, Mr. Abraham, you'd like to report anything on the update. We have received information. It's in our packet, so I do want to acknowledge that we did receive the updates. All right, moving us along to task force reports from council members and from our mayor. So at this time, Edgar, would you be willing to start?
Sure. We haven't really met with any of the task forces that I've been assigned to. We've been fairly preoccupied with the city and the hospital. So we're still working diligently with the hospital. I know all of my colleagues have been working very diligently, and we are committed to continue doing that until we have more to report to the community in order to have as much information out as possible. I did get the opportunity to attend the El Centro Mardi Gras Parade. It was a very nice event with my family. All my colleagues were there, of course, and it was great to see the community come out, even though it was a little chilly. But it was great to see such a great turnout and all the vendors out and about and getting a lot of business. And the bands were great. It was a really nice setup. I'd like to thank everybody from the city staff that assisted in putting together another great event that has become one of our defining events of the year. And I think that it was very well done, and I really appreciated the opportunity to participate in that with my family. And I know that my colleagues were having a great time as well.
Great, excellent. Madam Mayor Pro Tem?
So since our last meeting, we attended an open house for Senator Steve Padilla, which was right here next door. And that same evening, an open house for Assemblymember Eduardo Garcia. So it was nice to see that they were very well attended. Many members of the community, aside from many dignitaries, we also had quite a few of our constituents there to speak to them and to be able to ask questions. But they also, the two elected officials also had very, shared their vision with the attendees at these two open houses. And, along with my colleague, Councilmember Garcia, he and I have been participating together with Matthew Genesitis in the CEO and CFO interviews. And so we have another one coming up tomorrow morning. And so hopefully we're working diligently to find new leadership for the hospital. Also attended the not only the Mardi Gras parade, but also the Mardi Gras coronation event. That was nice, to see Mr. and Mrs. Fisher. Even though he asks me to call him Chuck, I can't, because he was a teacher when I was a kid, and so I've got that respect for him. So, but I do have to say that we needed more beads. We ran out of beads before we turned the corner onto Main Street, but it was so much fun, and it was a nice crowd. I know that Mayor took a picture from the stage, and it was like, wow, the crowd was just very impressive. So we have, task force meetings coming up. I know that I have the task force to end homelessness, and so I know that the day center is going to be a topic of discussion, and I know that we'll be talking to Officer Bernal and to Ana Garcia to give us updates on what's been going on the streets. And I think that concludes my report.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So since we last met here, as mentioned in by previous members, the hospital situation is what has essentially my main focus. And so I apologize if all three things that I have to say are just hospital related. But so we did last week have a meeting with Congressman Raul Reese, who came down to hear from all three entities. So I was there, the mayor was there on behalf of ECRMC. We had folks from Pioneers as well as Heffernan, and the discussion just kind of was to inform him and his team from DC that came down as to the current circumstance of ECRMC and just healthcare in general here in the Valley, and where these three entities plan to go, like what the heading is. And so everything that you all have heard from us and everything my colleagues have been discussing was basically conveyed to him in person, and that was the purpose of the meeting. So I was very pleased, and I was actually very inspired walking out of that meeting, listening to him, not just because he's a politician, but he is a experienced public health, right, policymaker, as well as an emergency room physician. So he has this dichotomous identity of being public policy as well as clinical. And so what perfect person could we have just giving us some advice and weighing in, right? And more so than anything, walking out with a commitment from him as to how he could rally up federal resources for us, right? In terms of what we would need in the future. So with that, we also met, El Centro Regional Medical Center met a week or so ago. And I think the biggest takeaway from there was the new financial projections. And so we were thankful enough to either get waivers in terms of some expenses that were coming in. We got some advances from some payments that would have came in later in the year, as well as delaying a Cerner implementation, which basically means that how many of us know that we're going to get paid on Friday, but we want to go out and buy something, right? So we'll put it on the credit card. This way is just saying, we're not going to do that. We're going to wait till the money comes in, and then we're going to go ahead and implement it. So rather than moving forward on an update in April, we're going to do it in June, July, around that time frame. And so the money would be there in order to move forward. And so because of that, we're not putting anything on the credit card. We're not spending something that we don't have. And that allowed for our projections, our cash flow projections, to significantly expand itself, right? Rather than March, it was later this year. So that is actually a really big breathing room for us. And Madam Mayor, the last thing that I have, and I could not finish without giving a special shout out to Assemblymember Eduardo Garcia for introducing AB 918 for Imperial County. And AB 918 is the healthcare district bill that would essentially create and direct LAFCO and the county to create the single healthcare district here in Imperial County. And so I just really want to say thank you, Assemblyman Garcia, for doing that on our behalf. And I spoke to his chief of staff earlier today, and there will be a meeting very soon between Pioneers, Heffernan, and ECRMC to start crafting the main language for that bill as we move forward.
Thank you. Ms. Sonia Carter.
I want to start. I first attended Eduardo Garcia's open house. Very nice event. It was nice to see a lot of people. I met a lot of people, a lot of familiar faces I haven't seen in a long time. That was a very nice event. And this is Black History Month and Rap Slab Cook-Off. I did attend that event also. And very nice event. The ribs were delicious. I have to hand it to them. I'm not the type of person that I don't eat everybody's cooking. That's not, I'm sorry, it's not a secret. I don't eat everybody's cooking, but to taste the ribs, and they were just falling off of the bone. So I do have to give it to the winner. She did a really good job. And then we did have our special hospital meeting. I can say that I'm happy that we see things are narrowing down now. When I first came on to council, things were hectic and different because it was different decisions and different point of views. And so now things are coming to where we at least have a plan A, plan B, plan C, and let's work from there. So that's a good thing. Then the introduction for the king and queen, outstanding, very nice. And that day at work, Mr. Fisher is our intern at my job. He's our intern principal right now. And so that day at work, he was going around giving beads to everybody. We had beads all day long, everybody, all the teachers, all the staff, everybody had beads. He was just excited. So that was a very phenomenal day for him and for all of us as staff. And then the Mardi Gras parade, excellent. My colleagues and I, we had a wonderful time. We laughed like it wasn't nobody's business. We just really enjoyed ourselves, which is well deserved since it's just been decision making. We had a really good time, and I'm happy about that. Thank you.
Wonderful. For my report, I just would like to take this opportunity to share with you, I was at a training when they had the grand opening for the Woman Havens thrift store. So I had the opportunity to meet with the director, Gina Vargas. She went ahead and gave me a walkthrough of the Woman Havens thrift store. She walked me through the entire store, and then also on the collection side in regards to how collections are being received. I know that that had been a concern for some of the business owners in the downtown area, but it has been delineated, it's smooth, it's a clear transition on how that works. And so it was just a great opportunity. I think when we think of thrift stores, right, we think of it being a secondhand store, but really when you walk into the store, you walk in and you feel that you are shopping at a store. Everything is organized, it's in gondolas, everything is gently worn, if you will. And so the sense of being able to go into the thrift store and to have a great shopping experience is important. You're welcome there. And it was just a great opportunity to see that, that enhancement that's taken place in our downtown area. I also got to participate at Southwest High School. They had a career technical education experience is what it was called, and it allowed individuals from the community, myself representing our council as mayor. I had the opportunity to sit in a graphic design classroom, culinary arts, which was the best. It is Cafe 54. Students prepare a meal there. I got to experience agro science, which is their FFA program. I got to attend the dental assistant program, which I was taught how to floss my teeth correctly. I'm sure my dentist will be happy. And then the fourth workshop that I got to attend was on financial services that allowed students to understand budgeting and money management. So that was great. In addition to that, of course, I got to visit several open houses for Senator Steve Padilla and Assembly Member Eduardo Garcia. Had the opportunity to be the keynote at the Hidalgo Society's installation dinner. Wonderful event. Miss Adriana, I know that we spoke on Dia de los Muertos at the community center, and we heard from many of our community members that were asking to bring back our Mardi Gras light parade. And I thank you for that because we listened to our community. It was important. It is a staple in our community. And I know it takes endless hours to put the production of a parade together. And so we'd like to thank our partners as well, Ivy Regional Chamber and Los Vigilantes. It took a collective effort to be able to provide the Mardi Gras Parade of Lights. I got the opportunity to stand on stage, so I had the bird's eye view, and I will tell you it looked like a sea of community members enjoying a great evening. I would guesstimate anywhere between 3,000 participants. I would estimate that. I don't know if you have a greater number than that, Ms. Nava, but I will share that people enjoyed the event. The parade route was lined with individuals that came out to see the parade.
Thank you, Mayor, for your acknowledgement. And I also want to thank all my colleagues. We, as a group, get together, police, chief of police, fire chief, obviously our interim city manager that almost killed me with the sirens thinking something bad had happened, but then he's like, no, it's part of the parade activities. But really, and our partners, Ivy Regional Chamber, Los Vigilantes, we don't do this alone. All the Parks and Rec team that really devours and pours their heart into each of these floats to make them special for the community. And also all the people who attended. Honestly, a parade is not lively without people. We are nothing without community. And so I just want to thank all of you for your support. The funding that you have poured into special events has allowed us to do our job and do it well. But also our, somebody needs to close the streets. Public Works does that. Somebody enforces traffic. That's PD. And so we as a team have been working really strongly, and I want to just make sure that my colleagues know that we are extremely grateful of their support because we couldn't do this alone. We're too small. So thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Just one of the last items on Friday, had the opportunity to meet the ambassador of India to the United States in Indian Wells. And so that was a great opportunity to hear the connection and the collaboration in regards to working with the country of India. I want to take this opportunity to really thank my colleagues. I will share with you that I am so honored and so privileged to be working with such a great team. When we took a look at the timeline of ECRMC, we knew in December that we were going to have to make difficult decisions. We inserted ourselves as the ECRMC board trustees, knowing the financial difficulties that the hospital was in. I have been very honored and privileged that we have sat and spent many, many hours deliberating and taking a look at all the options in regards to how to deliver healthcare from the ECRMC perspective. And I want to thank you for your due diligence in making sure that as we sit here before all of our constituents, that we are dedicated and devoting to making sure that the healthcare system, at least for ECRMC, continues to move forth. Mr. Matthew and Ms. Tammy, I thank you for being a partner with us and sharing the same vision that we will work on stabilizing our hospital, the healthcare of our hospital, both financially and from the delivery perspective. There's two parallel tracks that are taking place, just for clarification. One of the tracks that we're on is to making sure that we have stability, our financial stability in our ECRMC hospital. The second track that we're working on is working on the development of a healthcare district. So both of those efforts are being run parallel to make sure that we are moving forward and that we have healthcare here in the Imperial Valley as a whole. I'm asking again, because of misinformation that is being released from unofficial sites, the hospital is open. Please seek the services. If you find yourself or your family members, your neighbor, someone from your church, please convey that message. We need community ambassadors to share the information. The hospital is open. Seek those services. Same quality of care, same dedicated employees that work there day in, day out. And so we want to make sure that we're sharing that information. So colleagues, I thank you for the numerous hours, I would say in the hundreds of hours that have been spent on making sure that we're making the right decisions for the healthcare of ECRMC and for our community. So for that, I thank you. At this point, then, I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to our city manager's report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I had the pleasure of attending the Library and Community Services Board meeting earlier, and I wanted to share that I want to thank first our Director of Community Services, Adriana Nava, and our Director of Human Resources, Dulce Bedoya, for their assistance in going through and helping me select a new director for the library. So I'm happy to share that on March 20th, we should have our new director through LSNS come into the library and assume the role of library director. So that's something that is good news for the city of El Centro, someone that we've been looking for a while. Joselito, we're going to have a press release on that, so don't worry. I also attended the Senators' open house as well as the Assembly members. I think everybody eloquently covered it. I attended Imperial County Transportation Commission. There was a number of local transportation needs and concerns that were discussed. I also attended the update for COVID-19, monkeypox, and the flu. Although all those are communicable diseases, they have we've had some challenges. However, everything seems to be stable, which is a good thing for the community. Also, during the time that Adriana and myself met with the league presidents as well as representatives from all the different teams that use our fields, I think we did a lot of headway. We identified some areas of concern where we could also improve. So I think that's going to result in better communication as well as working together. I also attended the coronation, but most importantly, the parade. I wanted to apologize to Councilmember Garcia's family and himself. I might have blown his ears out a couple of times. So I apologize for that. I apologize to Adriana because she thought there was an emergency. I had a great time. I got to drive a fire truck for, once again, in several months. So, the firefighter in me, as well as the 5-year-old child that lives in here, we were super happy.
They say it's like riding a bike. Is it true?
It is. I'll tell you one thing.
Jump right in.
It took me right back to kindergarten. I remember sitting in a Mexicali police patrol unit because I went to school in Mexicali and playing with the sirens. And at one point I was reaching for the siren and it took me way back to that day. So it was a lot of fun. I was impressed by the number of people that were here, that attended the event. I was very happy to see the smiles of everybody, the smiles of also yourselves as you guys were enjoying the moment. Also, during the coronation, I did have the chance actually to talk to Sergeant Felix for a little bit. And I wanted to take a time to actually say thank you to the police department. You know, you guys, do a tremendous job, and sometimes it's not it goes unnoticed, I guess I should say. So thank you, thank you for your service. Thank you for everything you guys do. It's much appreciated, Lieutenant. I always josh with him about that. Also, and to this morning, another great moment, we had a swearing ceremony for one new employee over at the library. So all in all, it's been a great couple of weeks since our last meeting, and I'm happy to end my report on that note.
With that, dear friends and colleagues, I think it's time to go home to our families. So this meeting is adjourned.